Today, political history and legal history is being made as a jury is selected in the first criminal trial of a former president of the United States. This is the first time this has ever happened. And making this even more unprecedented, Donald Trump is a former president who is also currently running, of course, to return to the White House for a second term. Trump charged with trying to illegally cover up alleged affairs, including with an adult film star. This is something he strongly denies, in particular denies breaking any laws. Robert Costa is following it outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Bob, I saw the satellite trucks yesterday lined up all in a row. Good morning.
Everybody's here, Tony. Good morning. The Trump legal team has worked for months to delay the start of this trial, but it begins today with hundreds of potential jurors being considered. And former President Trump tells us he will be watching this process very closely. And for him, it's significant, also historic. The first time a former president has ever faced a criminal trial, a trial that could have real political consequences.
I've been indicted more than Al Capone.
A rally cry on the campaign trail, now a courtroom reality, as President Trump today becomes the first former president to stand trial in a criminal case.
When I walk into that courtroom, I know I will have the love of 200 million Americans behind me.
Trump faces 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, accused of scheming to funnel payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels through former lawyer Michael Cohen. Prosecutors say it was an attempt to stop an alleged past affair from becoming a scandal just before the 2016 presidential election.
34 false statements in business records that were concealing criminal conduct.
Trump has pleaded not guilty on all counts. And today, prosecutors and Trump's legal team will begin the complicated process of interviewing and eliminating more than 500 potential jurors. The lengthy juror questionnaire poses 42 questions, including if they've ever attended a Trump rally or if they follow the former president on social media.
This is a lengthy process. I do not expect it to take a couple of days. I frankly expect it to take a couple of weeks.
Trump's team is expected to use jury selection to argue he can't get a fair trial in Manhattan, and sources say they will likely push to move the case elsewhere. On Friday, I questioned Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
And what are you watching as jury selection begins in New York?
You know, jury selection is largely luck. It depends who you get. It's very unfair that I'm having a trial there.
Former President Trump will be expected to be here in court every day for a trial that could last more than 6 weeks. And here outside the court this morning, security is already tight. The streets full of police officers, Secret Service personnel, and, of course, reporters. Vlad.
Bob, thanks very much.
We're going to begin with a very busy start to former President Donald Trump's historic criminal trial right here in New York City. Now, Donald Trump was mostly quiet during the proceedings. That's in contrast to recent comments on social media and elsewhere that have gotten him into a little bit of trouble. The former president faces 34 felony counts related to alleged hush money payments to cover up an affair. Now, he denies all of this. Robert Costa was in the courthouse, and we're glad to say that this morning, Bob is in the studio with us. Good morning to you.
Good morning. On day one of his historic criminal trial, former President Trump lashed out at the New York judge who is requiring him to be there every day court is in session, potentially for 8 weeks. And so far, not one juror has been chosen.
Donald Trump was defiant Monday, as he became the first former president to face criminal charges.
We're not going to be given a fair trial.
During the proceedings, Trump appeared irritated at times and bored at others, even appearing to nod off at one point, but perked up as potential jurors entered the courtroom. Out of the first batch of 96 prospective jurors who were sworn in and questioned, more than half were excused, many after saying they could not be fair and impartial. Trump is accused of scheming to funnel payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels through his former lawyer Michael Cohen, in what prosecutors say was an attempt to stop an alleged past affair from becoming a scandal just before the 2016 presidential election. Trump has denied both the affair and making the payments.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
The trial is likely to feature testimony from key witnesses, including Cohen and Daniels, along with former White House aide Hope Hicks. Last week, the former president slammed Cohen and Daniels on social media, calling them sleazebags. Attorneys with the Manhattan DA's office asked the judge to hold the former president in contempt for violating a gag order. A hearing on that will be held later this month.
It's a scam. It's a political witch hunt.
Throughout the day, Trump sent out a blizzard of fundraising appeals blasting the case and criticized the judge for not allowing him to attend a U.S. Supreme Court hearing next week on his presidential immunity claims.
He thinks he's superior, I guess, to the Supreme Court. We got a real problem with this judge.
CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman joins us now at the table. Glad you're both here. Bob stays with us as well. Ricky, so this is the first of, I believe, 4 different criminal trials of the former president is facing. Why is this one in particular so significant?
It's significant because it's first. It's significant, and it is a solemn day in court when you put a former president, let alone one who is running for office again, on trial. Everything about this has to be taken seriously, and if he is convicted, you must face the fact that there are people out there who will take this conviction seriously in Bob's world when they go to the polls.
Should we point out that this is not normal? You know, Donald Trump always says it's a witch hunt, everyone's against him, that it's unprecedented, but also his behavior for a lot of people is unprecedented. This is just not normal what we're living. After a while, I worry that the audience just hears white noise where they hear all of these cases running together.
They may, but this is the first one that actually is going forward, so the attention will be on this one. But no, it is not normal. Nothing about this follows legal norms in a courtroom. It may happen this time because Judge Merchant is strict and he is going to run a courtroom the way it should be run. But 34 felonies for business records, not normal.
Bob, Trump has already been accused of violating the judge's gag order, which bars him from making public statements about witnesses. How does this affect his ability to rally his base?
So the gag order allows Trump to talk about the judge in this case. It allows him to talk about the district attorney, just not witnesses. But it's clear that former President Trump is testing the bounds of what he's able to say as not only the defendant in this case, but as Ricky said, a candidate for federal office running for the presidency. And he's also trying to show his people that he's fighting the political establishment, the legal establishment. One time I reported about a story. Hope Hicks talked to Trump after the 2020 election. She said, "Why can't you just give up the fight?" He said, my people, they demand I fight.
Yeah, he acts like it's on behalf of the people. There were reports that he seemed to be falling asleep in court yesterday. Was he bored?
Whatever he was doing, he was closing his eyes, dipping his chin. Some there say he was sleeping, others say he was being performative. Whatever it was Trump, and he was showing he was dismissive of the proceedings.
Just resting his eyes for a moment.
Well, there's an adrenaline factor there, too. I mean, when you have a lot of stress and you are a criminal defendant who is potentially facing 4 years prison time, it gets to you that this is serious. And as you come in wrapped up tight, you have moments where your adrenaline goes down.
I'm sure that's true.
It's going to be tough to get a jury, don't you think? I heard reports of jurors saying, I don't want to do this.
Well, Biden won like 85, 86% of the potential voters in the jury pool area. So, I mean, like, it's very blue area is my point. Can they get a fair jury?
We have to decide what's fair. What it means is who is the least partial. And here, one of the smart things the judge did was he basically said, raise your hand and you may leave if you think you cannot be fair and impartial. That probably took days off of jury selection just by getting rid of those people. What I say, very important, watch out for the stealth juror, the juror who answers everything perfectly because he or she wants to be on that jury and vote the way that he or she does not appear that they will vote.
Such a veteran of these things. I love that kind of detail, yeah.
And watch for a venue change push. Sources close to Trump's legal team tell me they're going to try to get this case out of New York, saying they can't get a fair hearing.
And they should do it every single day. When you have 50% of the people who say they can't be fair, move for a change of venue.
And that number, by the way, is 87% voted for Joe Biden among the population that is the jury pool being drawn from. It's a big number.
Speaking of Joe Biden, you might not be able to use that Sleepy Joe diss if it's true that he fell asleep in court. Ricky and Bob, thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
We're going to begin this hour with Donald Trump in New York for day 2 of his historic criminal trial related to the alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. But that is not the only hearing today with big legal implications for the former president. The U.S. Supreme Court takes up a case that could have a major impact on Trump's federal election interference case, and its decision could end up throwing out charges against hundreds of defendants from the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Scott McFarland is outside the Supreme Court for us following all this. Scott, good morning.
Tony, good morning to you. A pivotal moment in the largest criminal prosecution in U.S. history. 3 years after the Capitol attack, the Supreme Court will weigh whether to strike down one of the most common charges brought against the rioters, obstruction of an official proceeding. Prosecutors have argued successfully that the rioters obstructed the electoral count on January 6th, but the defendants have since argued that law shouldn't apply, that it was passed after the Enron scandal in 2002 and is more suitable for financial or documents crimes. Adding to the complication, it's also one of the charges that former President Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to in the special counsel's 2020 election conspiracy case. If the high court strikes down this charge, it could shrink or delay Trump's trial here in Washington. And Vlad, it could also lead to early release for some of the convicted January 6 defendants.
Scott, you track these January 6 cases very closely. How many defendants could be affected by this ruling?
Oh, this is huge. 1 in 3, more than 350 defendants have been charged with obstruction, including those far-right group members who were also convicted of seditious conspiracy or assaulting police. It won't likely reduce their sentences, but for the defendants for whom this is the top charge, they could be released early. What's more, Vlad, it's already led to the release of some defendants. A judge ordered the release of Kevin Seafried, the Delaware man who was convicted of parading the Confederate flag through the Capitol. Released him just because the Supreme Court is having this argument today.
All right, we'll be watching. Scott, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The court, in this first ever criminal trial of a former president, has chosen its 12 jurors and is expected they're going to decide this case against the former president. Trump is accused, of course, of falsifying business records to hide an alleged affair with an adult film actor ahead of the 2016 election. He has pleaded not guilty, and opening statements, at long last, could come as soon as Monday. Robert Costa is covering the trial.
3 days into the first criminal trial of former President Donald Trump, the jury has been seated. The 12-person jury consists of 7 men and 5 women, among them a salesman, investment banker, lawyers, and speech therapist. 1 alternate has been chosen, but 5 more are needed, and those could be filled out today.
I'm sitting here for days now, from morning till night, in that freezing room, freezing. Everybody was freezing in there.
Earlier Thursday, there were setbacks when 2 jurors chosen the day before were dismissed. One was a nurse who no longer believed she could be impartial, saying aspects of my identity have already been out there in public. The other, a man who had called Trump fascinating and mysterious, but it emerged he was once arrested for allegedly ripping down conservative political posters in the 1990s, according to prosecutors.
This is the most high-profile defendant who's probably ever sat trial.
Trial consultant Richard Gabriel says it's possible more jurors could be dismissed.
And some of them do come back and go, you know, I've thought about this, and I think it will be hard for me. They have to be able to do their jobs without undue pressure from the outside.
Trump was mostly quiet in court, but he's continued to rage about the case on social media, alarming prosecutors who claimed he has violated the judge's gag order 7 times. It's ridiculous. It has to stop. And outside the courtroom, he continued to slam the judge and district attorney, insisting the case is driven by politics.
I'm supposed to be in a lot of different places campaigning, but I've been here all day on a trial that really is a very unfair trial.
Trump will be in court again today as they try to seat the remaining alternate jurors. He'll be in North Carolina over the weekend campaigning, and as Tony said, back in New York on Monday as opening statements likely begin. Gayle.
All right, and Bob, you'll be there too. Thank you very much.